All right, this is Rita Carr, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission, calling to order our November 21st, 2025 meeting at 10 a.m. This meeting is being audio and video recorded and being conducted in a hybrid format. I will start with a roll call of commission members. In person, we have Betsy Tyler, Barbara Halstead, here, George Butterworth,
here,
and on Zoom, Abby DiMolina,
here,
and Sarah McLean.
here.
Thank you very much. And our staff, Holly Backus is here.
Morning.
Oh, and Rita Carr, I'm here also. Members of the public, we have Abby Camp and Elizabeth Kirkpatrick. And then for our minutes, there's someone on the phone, a 1571 number. Could you identify yourself, please? You're muted.
any chance it's Angus?
Oh, there we go.
Hi. Sorry about that. I was trying to figure out how to unmute. It's Leo Grenier, Senior Planner, U.S. Coast Guard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so first on our agenda, is there any public comment for items not already listed on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the staff update. Holly, is there any updates beyond what's on the agenda?
I don't have anything really updating or besides what's on the agenda for today.
Okay, then we will move on to the section 106 review of the pier replacement and related alterations at Coast Guard Station Brant Point. So Leo and Elizabeth, do you have a presentation, anything different from what was in our packet, or?
Hi, Elizabeth here. No, we were just notified of this meeting about an hour and a half ago, so we did not prepare a presentation. But the only noted change that has come about since then is that we are deliberating now between raising the bulkhead or building a seawall. And we have not decided what would be the best design or most suitable design for this property yet.
Okay.
And Leo, feel free to jump in if there's anything else you'd like to share.
No, Elizabeth, you captured it. It's the pier, which we need to recapitalize due to the low elevation of that and the fact that it hinders our operations. And then the only change is, or it's not really a change yet because we don't know, but we're in the preliminary design of whether it's going to be a seawall or a bulkhead.
Okay. Oh, and just for the record, for the minutes, Angus McLeod has joined us. Angus, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I see the timber ramp, it looks like it's also being extended beyond where it currently exists to connect to the operations building. Is that right?
Yes, again, that is in order to facilitate operations. Right now, what's happening is the water is coming into our site, as is with all of Brant Point, as the fact it is low-lying. And it seems to be occurring in the winter months, and it's an unsafe condition to have our personnel wade through knee-deep to sometimes hip-deep water to try to access a boat on the pier.
Yes.
So
And I saw
that's the reason for it.
Yes, that makes sense to me. And the ramp will connect to the building at 6 feet of elevation. Is that the current elevation of the building?
Yes, I believe that is what's on the drawings. I'm not sure without having it in front of me, but that sounds fair.
Okay. And then it will slope up to 10 feet at the bulkhead.
Right. One, to clear the bulkhead. Two, to get it out of the sea level, so that it doesn't so that the new pier is not subject to wave action during the storms and overtopping.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any other questions, concerns?
Thank you
Do
for
you,
going over the details, Rita. There were so many good plans like this one in plan and so much great historical information, but I wasn't seeing like a section drawing of like the height of where it is versus where it's proposed to go. But it makes total sense that it would be horrifying in a storm to be wading through water to be able to get onto a boat. So I completely understand that.
yeah, the photos included certainly illustrated that point well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so it sounds like
I'm
the
happy to make
city,
a motion to uh, write a
so
letter.
yeah, so I think in this case with the section, section 106, we're reviewing for whether or not we find there to be an adverse effect. So it sounds like from our discussion, we find that there's no adverse effect.
Well, except for the bulkhead versus the seawall. Seawall would be a very different thing.
Yes.
Right.
So based on this conceptual plan with the bulkhead.
I would make it clear. on
Yes.
that.
Okay.
And I guess to that point, before you all make your motion, that typically, hardscaping type of things do go to the HDC as well for their
Yeah.
review. Makes sense.
So Angus, did you want to make a motion?
Oh, make a motion of non-adverse what's the best way to word it? Effect of the improvements proposed.
As they stand with the bulkhead.
Yes.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So motion made by Angus, seconded by George. Angus on your motion.
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Abby,
Aye, sorry, screaming baby.
George,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So that carries unanimously. And great. So Elizabeth and Leo, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And I appreciate your time as well. One quick question. You said that this also has to go to HDC. Is that something else?
For hardscaping,
Okay, so what does that HDC stand for?
the Historic District Commission, so this is the Historical Commission for Section 106, but they review for, and which I think you all have submitted stuff for, ramps in the past,
Okay.
or are they exempt?
I thought
Okay. I'll confirm with that.
Properties were exempt, like that's why, the Coast
Yep.
Guard housing out on Low Beach is like
Is what it is.
artificial siding, yeah, is what it is,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'll confirm with that, Elizabeth, but we'll follow up with the approval letter from the chair on this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for being here.
Have a nice day.
You too, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
I'm just curious about how many feet up they felt like they had to go to deal with this for now, just out of curiosity.
10.
Yeah.
She said 10.
10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be up there. Well, when I'm sure that's at least as far as they need to go for future.
And on that note, if you all have seen what they've done for the town boat pier, that fluctuates as well, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a similar construction.
Yeah.
It has to, and it was
They can float the pier, but they can't float the ramp.
right.
Mhm.
Of course, when it really floods, they don't even have a good way to get people to the Coast Guard station. Well, I guess by
Yes.
boat.
By boat.
They own boats. Go down Easton Street.
All right, next on the agenda was the 10 New Whale Street, demolition appeal, which I am going to recuse from as my employer, Nantucket Preservation Trust, was the appellant in that case.
I think I have to too.
All right, Barbara is also recusing. Um, Angus, you had made submitted a potential conflict of, or an appearance of a conflict of interest form disclosure to the select board. Is that correct?
I did, and I didn't, I don't believe I heard back from them, so I guess they got the information that they needed. And I'm happy to share this discussion or uh, or recuse, either way. I just wanted to have flexibility. So what what seems
I mean, it's entirely up to you if you feel you can be impartial as a member of the HDC and, just in general. So,
I I believe so.
okay, well, I'm going to step away from the table.
This will go on with you.
Um, so I our role as the in the historical commission is to advise the select board on matters of preservation and also work with the HTC and any other town government bodies uh, to promote and maintain our you know character and setting and preserve our assets, our historic assets. So, with all of that in mind, we didn't send a letter from the NHC to the select board advising them on this matter. But with the loss of this building, it seemed important to sort of do a post, uh, meeting to sort of figure out is there a better was there is there a more effective way to save our resources? Is there something that we could have done or can do in the future as a commission ourselves, and also what advice we would give any other body um, to help preserve our historic assets. So that's really what the discussion is just sort of a post-mortem. And so any ideas that anyone has to share, I thought that it would be a good idea for us to do that. Um, Sarah, please go ahead.
So I think that it puts the HTC in a very, or sorry, the select board in a very difficult position when they're asked to try and override an HTC decision for a board that they've appointed. So I think that if we can somehow avoid it getting to the point where the select board is asked to reverse something, then I think that's the best course of action. So if we can look at the HTC in terms of how we can maybe address it before so we're helping the HDC and so we're writing in support or doing something that way. I think the biggest thing that we need to look at is holding these owners to a standard of maintenance that there's oversight and they need to maintain the buildings much sooner than 40 or 50 years of neglect that then they turn around and say, oh, it's too much money now. Well, 20 years ago, it would have been a whole lot less money and, it would have easily been saved. So I think that that's the biggest thing. So I don't know what sort of teeth we have in order to do that. Obviously, the HDC is the one that's responsible, but I think that if we can look at buildings that are maybe on the precipice of getting closer to that demolition by neglect and are easier targets, then I think that that's probably the best way we can insert ourselves in a productive manner that's not going to step on toes of the HCC, that's not going to, that it gets before the select board is in that position. And so I guess that's my stance. Like we just need to do a better job of protecting the buildings before they get too far down that, road where the developer or the owner just says, no, I'm not going to do it.
So
So
to pull that thread a little bit, Sarah, would that involve sort of really proactively surveying, as we drive around town, walk around town,
So I
really
believe
noticing what the buildings are that are in need of more diligent maintenance.
yes, and I believe that we talked about this maybe a year ago where we have a list, an ongoing list, and Holly can, speak to that, I'm sure, or someone can speak to it, but we have an ongoing list of properties that we have seen that are like, oh, this is, nothing's been done in quite some time. Let's go to the building department or let's figure out what the situation is. And then maybe a letter from the town gets sent to the owners so that they're on notice. I know in my personal instance, in the house that I bought, there were two separate instances, depending on the owners, where the HDC and the town had sent a letter that they were going to start fining the owners if they did not maintain, sort of basic maintenance. And in one case, it was enough to get them to relinquish the property because it was going to cost them too much
Mhm.
to do that. But at least it puts them on notice so that they can't, I think it sets a terrible precedent. And I think that for this particular instance with the building on New Whale is that it sets a terrible precedent that basically says if you neglect the building long enough, we will allow you to tear it down. And economically speaking or financially speaking, that's the best course of action, obviously, because it's a whole lot less money to have a clean building site that then they can, even if they say we're going to build a building exactly the same way that was there, it's going to be less expensive than it is to, restore something, perhaps, if it's gotten to a point where it's very far gone. So, I think that if the onus is on them much sooner and they're held to that, I mean, that's the other thing. Someone actually has to hold them accountable for maintaining the building. But yeah, I think it is our responsibility to highlight those buildings, have a list. Maybe there's a person who chairs the driving around on a regular basis to see, oh, has anything happened? I don't want to put more work on the HCC or the town staff to have to do that. But I think that that would be one way we could help in that process.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else?
I just to kind of add to that, I think that's a really good idea, Sarah. And I think also by us having the data and having like a consistent process in the way, like if we have a scale, something like that, of what level these buildings are, and it's very consistent. I also think that will help in the future with whatever the building is, because if you can point to it's at X level, and like Sarah said, you've had these couple of points when and maybe what we do is, to Sarah's point, like maybe every year at the end of the year, we kind of send a letter saying, these are the buildings we've noticed, X are in this category, Y are in that category, whatever it is. But I think that just us consistently having the data will reinforce and make it not being like one-offs, this and that. And like Sarah said, it's just like it's like a consistent process. And then of course, when you get to, if there's an appeal, whatever, you can point to a process that is applied to every building. And so I think that that consistency will also help, because I know like the select board mentioned that they actually don't want to be the appealing body. They want it to go straight to court. So I think especially if you have the data and the consistency, that will be further, that'll be a stronger argument in court as well if you are appealing, because it is going to be showing like this is a process we apply to all the buildings. We review them every year. These are the ones we have been consistently raising this building as example, one that should be, preserved, whatever. But I just think that the more data you have, the stronger the argument will be.
Thanks, Abby. Um, Abby Camp,
Yes,
thank you for
hi.
joining us today.
Yes, two Abbeys. I, I'd like to speak as a public citizen, and I didn't know if you were taking public comment now.
Yes, and in fact, we have another person after you, but please go ahead, Abby.
Oh, okay.
And
So,
you are just for whoever doesn't know, you're a commissioner on the HDC.
yes, but today I'm just talking as a concerned citizen. And I liked Sarah's idea of making a list and taking care of those buildings. And with the book Building with Nantucket in Mind, it talks about, that demolition is really a last resort and so final, as we know. And if it gets deemed a significant structure, and that's a term they use in Building with Nantucket in Mind, then it gets a lot more scrutiny. And I think that would also lead to a lot more information coming from both sides, whether to demolish or whether it is worthy of saving. So I think that definition of significant structure, maybe that should be added to and made a very important piece of the vocabulary of Building with Nantucket in Mind. And and just getting more information on why it should not be demolished is so important. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Anne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Angus. Ann Duez, a private citizen, but who follows many of these matters. One thing I wanted to just make clear, which I think Sarah mentioned, the HDC is an elected body. It's not appointed by the select board. They are completely independent of the select board. So I got the idea that she felt there was some sort of a symbiotic relationship between them, and there should be, but it's not through any action of the select board having to do with the HDC other than the HDC alternates. So that I think was important to clarify. Secondly, I wanted to, based on personal experience and a lot of it, stress the importance of neighbors. The wood box, which is absolutely falling apart, finally came before the HDC at the behest of neighbors who were getting increasingly concerned about the dilapidated state of the building and the fact that Blue Flag was doing absolutely nothing to maintain it. So the neighbors brought an application or an appeal or whatever you call it to the HDC to ask them to do something about it. And the HDC did, sort of. It was better than nothing, but the HDC's hands are a little bit tied by what they can require an owner to do. At least that was my take on it. Angus, you would know better because you're a commissioner. But in my neighborhood, which is the Mill Street area, I have been working with my neighbors now for, I don't know, almost 10 years on a development in the neighborhood and many other matters. And when we have something to say, we say it, and people listen to us. But also remember, we're the eyes on the ground. We are the locals who are, some of us care about our neighborhoods, observe what's going on, and can be a huge resource to either the the Nantucket Historical Commission or the HTC or whatever, to bring to light situations that should probably get some attention from a more official body. But please, and I think you should advertise if you decide to go forward with creating this list, which I think is a great idea, because then it gets something on a piece of paper, people are focused. But I think that it would be a shame to overlook the benefit and the value added of neighbors. And so it should be very clear, I think, that this list exists. And if you have any concerns as a neighbor, or you know of buildings that are at risk, and what we're really talking about here is buildings that are at risk, they can be a huge resource to keeping on top of all of that stuff, because it's really hard. It's really hard when you're a small group. So I would recommend taking advantage of the neighbors.
Well, thank you so much for your participation, and your insight, and your neighbors have been very helpful to the HDC in the proposals that have come forth with the developments in your neighborhood. So thank you for that, and please spread the word that we're wanting to save any resources that are out there that are being neglected. So thank you for that. But I think it's a good idea maybe to do an advertisement. Is something falling down in your neighborhood or on your block or your street? Let us know. I know that the HDC is really taxed on all fronts. So adding one more thing is tough for them. So I think as much sort of the legwork that can be done beforehand, so that all they're doing is looking at the issue at hand, rather than sort of going out and doing the searching, I think is going to be beneficial,
And
helpful.
there's nobody who cares more about this stuff than the people who live in the neighborhood.
Exactly. Thank you. Holly, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I wanted to emphasize the importance of our survey work feeding into this. As you all may remember, when we became a CLG and got our first set of funding to create the survey plan and start the pilot in the fish lots. Well, the fish lots is exactly where the wood box is located. And if you remember correctly, our consultants, PAL, asked us what buildings within the fish lots neighborhood are threatened. What were the two that were included? 6 Fair Street and the wood box. I bring that up to let you know that within the processes of our survey efforts, MHC bakes in with the consultant to do exactly that. So we have these tangible neighborhoods. We created 59 different neighborhoods. When we select one for surveying, they're doing just that, exactly that. They're going out and looking at those neighborhoods to figure out what are the most threatened. And I think that pilot, not only being the pilot for our survey efforts within the survey plan of actual processes, if you will, was important, but also those two particular properties. One, the 6 Fair Street, has been rehabilitated and it looks gorgeous. Two, and it could have been demolished, to be honest with you. I had quite a bit of outside people asking, oh, I got a client that wants to buy that. Could it be demolished? And I said, I will not support that. No. And another aspect of it is the wood box. The wood box was identified. Obviously, it's 1709, over 300 years old, such a significant structure. And yes, the HDC, through the help of neighbors, were requested on the minimum maintenance. And my understanding, I think it's been sold. I haven't heard confirmation, but I believe it's been sold. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's good news from, a new steward, and hopefully they're going to do the right thing. So my point is on that, each neighborhood that's surveyed goes through and gets and figures out the threatened component. And that those are emphasized as important structures. So maybe, again, this was something that we had talked about when we had our CLG meeting of this commission assisting on being the eyes and ears on what structures are threatened. Maybe as we go through the survey plan, maybe this commission wants to look at the survey plan and figure out, now we're targeting in the fiscal 23 project of downtown, that list that we came up with for the RFQ. Maybe the commission themselves, you all can go through and look at what properties you think may meet that list. There's that. So maybe this is something that we can think about in that process. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Holly. Abby, did you have something to add? Abby Camp? Your hand is up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm listening intently, but I have nothing to add. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. Oh, your hand is gone now. Okay. Anyone at the table there?
We
So
have Betsy and George. Don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I
just so
think
they
it's
know.
great that we could create some sort of, list with, qualifications, data that could be surveyed, regularly to see what kind of deterioration has happened over a course of time and, have that information available. I think that's a great idea.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think, George, go
In
ahead.
my immediate neighborhood, I'm happy that Nantucket Island Resorts is finally dealing with what would be 21 North Water Street, except it kind of lost its individual number. But they did have a proposal for demolishing it some time back. And I was originally somewhat opposed to their rehab plan because they're not restoring the facade that fits into the neighborhood. But as compared to the fact that nothing has been done for decades on that building, I decided to not fight them over exactly what the facade would be. But it's a building that's like from 1800, and it was just completely ready to go if they didn't put some money into it, and they're redoing the foundation, and the whole building has been gutted anyway over the years because it was the dining room for the Springfield House and all that, and then the Harbor House, and so there's nothing really original other than the timbers of the building and the foundation, but the shape of it and the general block appearance of it is original, and they are preserving that. So that's a step forward.
Good. Thanks, George. Well, if there aren't any other comments, I'll hand it back over to Rita to continue with the agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we have an update on our ongoing historic resource surveys, starting with the funding that we received through the offshore wind fund and the successful RFP response that we received from Paleo West, Chronicle Heritage. Myself, Angus, and Holly met with Chronicle earlier this week, last week. They seemed great. They seemed very excited to get working. There was a group of 4, largely based out of their Buffalo office. So we talked to them. They had some logistical questions about, coming to Nantucket in the off season. What sort of resources are available at that point, or can they rent a car? Yes, they can. So it was yeah. And we provided them with this updated list of the town-owned historic resources that they will be considering for their surveys to create 30 Form B, MACRIS forms, Form Bs or Cs or As, depending on the resource.
Yeah.
It had a few additions from the last couple of times we had discussed things. We added, for example, the Sconset footbridge, the Sconset water company buildings weren't on there previously.
There was a couple of other town-owned structures, so I reached out to Rob Ranny down in the assessors and asked him, could you give me a list of town properties that we own that so I went by that and then by the dates that were indicated. So even if there were some oddball dates, for instance, there's one out in Arcoa. I can never say that right. And it says it's 1900. I don't think it's 1900, but something leads me to believe that it was moved out there.
A lot, yeah. I mean,
So
it's not town owned, but I know like Housing Nantucket
is right next door.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
even if, I think this list is good for them, and I said that, there might be some ones that they synthesize and figure out, wait a minute, this is not correct. But we also have such old surveys, the windshield surveys from the 80s, where they did individual forms for individual properties, even if it's all in one parcel. Now, the methodology is to combine that into one form, right? So that's actually going to reduce the amount. So it looks like it's a lot, but essentially it'll be reduced and they'll be able to choose. And then of course we have the ones that are in the town right of ways, our historic markers that don't have forms, or some of them actually do. The Civil War Monument does have a MACRIS, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna have that updated. And then of course ones like the footbridge out in Sconset does not have one. So this will be, I did provide them in an email with a link to a OneDrive. I compiled all the surveys and I knew, as well as some of the photographs. Hopefully that they'll reach out to NHA, explain to them their website. So hopefully we'll be looking forward to this important project and getting the town too to realize what they have is the key. Big. big on that.
Yes, so their next step is going to essentially create their working plan for how they're going to accomplish all of this. I think they said they expected to have that done within 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So we should have that to include for, everyone to review for the December meeting. So, but overall, I'm excited.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. This will be really good. Very, very good part of it. So.
Great. So then our other survey update is about the fiscal year 23 funding that we have from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. That RFQ is in process. Holly, do you have any further updates?
Not as of today. Last week, I was told by our finance procurement department that they were working on the drafts. As you remember, this was before we had this new software, so trying to take the very prescriptive form or RFQ and combine it into the software. I'm currently a ping pong ball between the town and MHC, so hopefully I sent an email this morning. I haven't heard anything back, but hopefully I'll hear back something in the beginning of next week. So that way I can inform MHC, because basically the time frames that they have in their different phases of the project have to be updated, and they have to bless it before we can actually post it. So it's a whole new format. And I've tried to explain to finance, it's really difficult to take this new software program that they're doing, but with it was called OpenGov, and try to take this very prescriptive process that the state has and merge it into this. And no other MHC funded historic district has used OpenGov, is my understanding from talking to Deputy Chapeau.
Okay.
So that's another thing. We're leading by example now, of course. Once again, but I've tried to stress how important we need to get this one going as well. Yeah. So.
Okay, great. Then next on the agenda, the fiscal year 26 for the Massachusetts Historical Commission Survey and Planning Grant pre-approval application. In the packet, you can see the application that we sent in for a preservation plan following our discussion at our last month's meeting. That was mailed off on Monday and
they've received it.
Great.
Yes.
We met the deadline for that pre-approval. So we requested a total grant of $30,000 from MHC, which with the 60-40 match, $20,000 from the town, it would be a $50,000 total project to create a comprehensive preservation plan. So building off of our survey plan, building off of the work that the town is doing with our master plan. So do you know the deadline? When will we hear from
I
MHC?
believe we'll find out next month.
Okay.
They'll have their own internal review of all the applications. And again, this is only for CLGs. So that pool is gotten smaller, which is a good thing. This is mainly due to the fact that they don't know where the federal government is going to be for the next fiscal year. So we're grateful to this to be offered that. And yeah, hopefully they're back and move forward there.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Next on the agenda, the Community Preservation Committee applications, 4 of which the NHC was involved with.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Holly has exciting news.
Yes. So I went to the first CPC application review process. They asked questions. Okay. We weren't called back. That's because in their next following up meeting, they blessed them all. So that means it will go on the town warrant with the full request that we've asked for all 4 of those projects.
Which are the 4? Can you just repeat quickly?
The 2 with Preservation Institute, Nantucket, University of Florida. So the one to take the West Monomoy recon and create the forms. We're looking about 250 forms. So we know that will be something that this commission will be more involved with, figuring out which ones we want to do. The other one was to start doing the historic farms on the island, which is very exciting. And I know all the different farming communities on the islands and Land Bank is very excited about that. So those are the 2 with PIN. And then the other one is additional funding for updating building with Nantucket in mind. Because we did receive funding years ago before I even started with the town 10 years ago. It's just been sitting there. So that will add on to it. Of course, money has gone up, so we wanted to request additional funding for that. And then the other one is we have aerials in the plus department from certain years some of them are big boards, some of them are the little books that were created. Anyway, we want to get them all scanned, digitized, have them available to the general public, both on the town's website and with NHA. So yes, it's been a long time coming. Those poor large board aerials from the 30s have been moved from department over the years, and they're just going to get deteriorated if they're not preserved appropriately and not be useful to anybody. So yeah, very excited that they didn't want to,
Yeah, that's great.
say anything negative. They were happy. So very, very appreciative of that. And I will notate this for everybody. I had when I was presenting, I know there's some members of the CPC that know that I intimately know about CPC and was the only student in high school that advocated for it. And I mentioned that, and some of them didn't know that. So I kind of wanted to emphasize that this isn't just something that we decided, oh, this will benefit. And I think there's also this conception of we're a town entity. Why is the town asking for funding? But again, this is preservation and it's available to all of us.
Thank you.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Great, so exciting news. Next on the agenda, the Civil War Monument repair. Where do things stand, Holly? Have you had any more information from Drew?
I have not reached out to Drew.
2 months
Okay.
ago, we were waiting for the old stones to come.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, the last we heard from him, right, is that people from the DPW were going to go to where they took the stone to get it back. So I would love if you could get an update from him on that. Have they been returned? What is the status of the insurance claim? Has it been signed off on? And then we also discussed wanting to proactively prevent something like this from happening again, where we were in a situation where we were told from the insurance company, this is the subcontractor who's going to do the repair. We didn't really have any say in selecting that person. And we see the result of that where it's an unsatisfactory result. Yes, thank you, Barbara. So have you heard were you able to reach out to okay, well, we will keep that on the agenda for December. And if there's anything I can do to, figure out how we can keep this moving forward. Did anybody else have any comments or questions on that? Okay, seeing none. We wanted to have a little update from those of you who participated in the NARA workshop that happened. So Holly, Sarah, who were involved, how did that go?
So it went well. Myself, Sarah, and Mary Bergman were at NARAB giving our update. We're basically taking their required CU course from the state in order for them to get their continuing education credits, taking their syllabus and turning it into Nantucket centric syllabus, this is the third time I think we've done it. And I think it went really, really well. I also included how on the screen and showed them how to access Macris, especially how now we have that layer from our GIS, and explaining that with our survey work, our efforts doing there, that you're going to see more of the triangles when NPT goes through the process of having preservation restrictions, and you're going to have more of the stars on the screen as well. Also emphasizing the importance of historic tax credits, preservation restrictions. I think there's also a misconception of, preclude me from doing things. So trying to get that positive aspect of it. Sarah, got any insight on that?
I didn't speak a whole lot, and it was mostly on, the potential for getting historic tax credits in early. in terms of, I think people are afraid of me speaking specifically about my negative experience. And it was more about, if it's something that you think your client might be interested in, these are the steps that you really need to take sooner rather than later. The documentation, the advantages of hiring a consultant, although it was, posited that like Matt Fee had done the application himself. I mean, it's very arduous. So I would not necessarily recommend that depending on the property. But also, I think the big thing is that people need to understand that you're competing with a lot of other properties. It's not like an endless bucket of money. And, they have given money for a certain number of properties here on the island. I think that they aren't as receptive to income producing single family residences for getting those dollars instead of like a mixed use. So I would say that from the standpoint of like, if someone had wanted to use that to restore the Candle Street factory or, something like that, where it was a benefit to the town, a benefit for mixed use redevelopment in a downtown center, they probably would be more receptive to something like that. Just because it encompasses a larger benefit to the people as a whole. And yeah, I mean, my experience is that they would much prefer to put those dollars to work at a large mill building where you've got, a huge amount of square footage. It's a massive building that, would leave a huge hole slash blight in the community. And so that would be, the multi-million dollars better spent on something like that. And I didn't try and scare anyone quite that badly, but yeah, it was more of like, if you're going to do that with a client, don't tell them that they can certainly get tax credits. Just say that it's one option to pursue and to do it sooner rather than later. And that was it.
How many people attended?
I'd say it was at least 30, maybe
Really?
even more. Yeah.
Any repeats?
I saw a few familiar faces in there. Had some good questions. I also went over our historic determination process with the HTC. Basically, any historic structure, you're exempt from substantial compliance section of the building code. Basically, it's created prior to, but in order to do that, there is a process before I can write a letter. And we're seeing a lot of these because of the energy code, stretch energy code that came into play.
Right.
You're altering a character defining features in DOER at the state level was putting Nantucket into the class category of the same as everybody else, which we're not because of our special act. So earlier this year, there's a few of us that met with them and explained to them about the importance of our special act. And, window mutton profiles are a character defining feature and the HCC has jurisdiction over that. But also with energy requirements of altering your framing, that can also mess with your character defining features. So having this exemption is important. There's always this misconception that I see anyway with our resilient Nantucket design guidelines for FEMA flooding that, oh, well, I have to elevate. Well, not necessarily. You can elevate a little bit and also do the proper flood proofing mechanisms. So explaining that, I think that was helpful. But everybody was really excited to see the surveys on the computer. And then Mary did a really good job, as always, of emphasizing all the different styles that Nantucket has. And then also advertising appropriately, where we see that, no, that's not correct. I also said a bazillion times at the end of the slides, I made a, takeaways type of thing. And one of the things I stressed is do not take the date of construction from the GIS. I mean, even you go to the town's website, Rob years ago put on there, I asked him to, can you please put a disclaimer just like you do for zoning? And he did. And I said, reach out if you don't any questions, please do. Gave out some handouts, the difference between the National Register, the local district that comes from MHC. I gave them some historic determination information, the application. I'm trying to think of what else I gave, but yeah, just information, education. I always say that you can never have enough education.
Yes.
So yes, it was good. I think it was really,
One
really
thing that I
good.
do is educate people.
Right, right. And then moving structures too. We did talk a little bit about that and the demo delay and what that entails and how other historic districts don't have the benefit of a special act, so they utilize it as a preservation tool. Nantucket, we don't have to. But we use it as sustainability, obviously a housing thing. And Brian Sullivan, who's really, intimately involved with our housing issues on Nantucket. I think I got him to really, oh my gosh, he perked up. We have such a breadth of contributing resources. It could be used to our advantage because we really can't build our way out of this affordable housing issue that, in my opinion, has been around for 40, 50 years. So it just kind of looks.
Sarah?
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to add, that Holly was really good at stressing that rather than having in their advertisements, which we see all the time, like, oh, you can just reimagine this and it'll be amazing. And that they should not be putting that in their ads because we can't guarantee, and certainly the real estate agents can't guarantee what the HDC will approve in terms of demolition, and putting that in their heads of like, because they love to use the reimagined, exactly the way you want it to be, and it has all of this potential for blah blah blah. And I said that was really big, and I think that was sort of like the light bulb that went off. And it was funny, I saw in one of the ads beforehand and had seen that, and then Holly said that, and literally the same ad was changed a week later where they kind of took that wording out. So it did actually, someone heard it, which was good.
That was really cool. And on that note, I think I had seen Laura Hansen, who's involved in their actually she went to Music High School. She's a couple years younger than me. And I saw her at town. She didn't get to attend, she had to go do something for work. But I saw her at town meeting and I said, it was awesome. Is there any way that we can kind of continue this momentum instead of being involved just for their continuing education credits? Is there something that they could reach to us and say, we want more information on this, or how can you assist us? Something how it could be a reciprocal kind of thing. So yeah, and if there's something that you all think that you want to, discuss with them or assist them with, get the think tanks going. I think this would be really good instead of just having to do this because of our continuing education credits. And I think having it yearly is beneficial. If at all
I'm glad they have to do it because of the continuing education.
Right, right. But kind of getting away from this is a requirement on that side and having them see the benefit of being educated on the proper ways to do things.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
A while back, when 17 North Water Street was on the market, they went one step further. They actually showed pictures of what you could do if you gutted it. And it wasn't anything the HDC could stop because it was all interior. But interesting, it was bought by a person who was actually keeping it the way it was. He's just redoing the bathrooms
Right.
and reverting it to a guest house.
Well, now we get them to put an easement on that and
I tried.
it's a home run.
With the previous owners that owned both of them, I tried. Got to go through both of them. Actually, I brought Mary and Rita with me, and there is misconceptions even with families that have owned historic structures for generations, thinking, oh, the HDC won't let them do that. No, the HDC only has jurisdiction on the exteriors. It's the interior that you want to put those restrictions on. I think people wait to the last minute or just don't understand the benefit of it. And then they sell it and then they come back and say, well, how come you allowed them to do that? Well, you didn't put any restrictions on the deed to say otherwise. So you have to speak up when you own it. And maybe that's something more that this commission can help assist in educating from that perspective. I think there's a misconception on restrictions in general.
Definitely.
In thinking that they're such a negative thing, and no, they're really not.
And that's expensive too.
Right, so just things to consider.
Yes, but no, that education component is definitely important. I'm glad to hear that, we talked about the historic tax credits, which I think a lot of, it obviously is a involved process to apply for those, but I actually met with a couple of students from WPI on Monday who are here, working with the housing department, looking at
around town.
Yeah, and their project specifically was about converting, space above retail downtown for, year-round affordable housing. And so I talked to them, and very historically appropriate, and I talked to them a lot about historic tax credits and how that works and like what this, the standards for rehabilitation are. And so the more people know about it, the better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think also too on that we talk about standards,
Mhm.
not doing something that would preclude a historic structure from being considered contributing.
Mhm.
I think there's this misconception, not quite understanding. And it's not just, I think, the public, there's also people that sit on boards that are not necessarily involved.
Right. And I wonder, is there any way, like, if people are applying for historic determinations,
Mhm.
is there any way to say, like, you then have to follow like the standards for rehabilitation or to,
Well, so that's why through the historic, since I've been involved with the town and with the HDC since 2019
Mhm.
and involved with the historic determination process, they, first of all, they don't go on the agenda unless I say, okay, those are good.
Yeah.
Because the chair at the time said, I know, Holly, you're not gonna support one that doesn't meet the criteria. Okay. But they should be in line with the proposed rehabilitation. Whether it's an addition or the structure is being elevated, what have you. So that there's that fine line of, essentially the addition or whatever the proposed COA was for met the criteria anyways because the HDC approved it.
Right.
There's only in this past 6 years, there's only been one that I didn't necessarily agree with. So when they made their motion on the approval, I requested an additional finding on their part of why they thought, but it's really, I totally understand on that part, but I don't know how, because again, if you read Building with Nantucket in mind, the Secretary of Interior standards are in there. They did that in that update. Yeah.
It just feels like if someone's applying for a historic determination to not have to follow, the
Right.
Scratch Energy Code or whatever, they shouldn't then be allowed to like completely gut it,
Yeah.
the interior of the house,
And I think too, with the historic determination, it's just from the HDC's perspective.
Yeah.
And they don't have jurisdiction. Whereas I think if it's something that there's a preservation restriction on, that's why also too, I think it's a very important to, I try to make sure that if NPT holds a restriction and we have an application beforehand, that nothing is done until we get that concurrence, because we don't necessarily, or the HDC doesn't necessarily get their concurrence at the application process. So it's a checks and balances, I guess. And that's another reason why I'm very happy to see the stars on the GIS from the macros layer, because I think that also gets an idea of, oh, wow, look how many restrictions are out there, which is good. It's all working together.
Great. Well, I'm glad that went so well and you had such
Angus.
oh, sorry, Angus.
Oh, I just wanted to say, I'm so glad that the NAREB thing happens every year, and it would be great if it happened more often than annually. But so much of it is about managing expectations, and there's I can't stress the importance enough of the way real estate is presented. That it needs to maintain its character, and it needs to make character defining elements, and the possibilities aren't limitless. There's just I think that's the issue is when people get an idea in their mind of, yeah, I can double the size of the house and do all this development, that it changes things, and then they're sort of hooked on that thought and upset with the HTC when it doesn't happen, or if it does happen, then it reinforces sort of the weird expectation. So I think the more information about the guidelines being presented to the prospective buyers is invaluable.
Yeah,
Not just that they're limitations, but these are exactly what the expectations are.
Yeah. No, and I think the more that we can encourage an understanding that living on Nantucket, buying property on Nantucket, the voters of the island in 1955 and then again in 1970, voted to have a local historic district, voted to expand that historic district to the entire island. And what that means is that it's in everyone's benefit that you can't just do whatever you want with your house. And like that is a big part of what makes Nantucket. And the more that that is understood, the better.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
one last thing, I'm curious, did deer fencing and cattle guards come up?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. I did mention the fact that people seem to be wanting to have their entire property bounded with fence to keep the deer out.
I need to start doing it.
And, I mean, I think that's, if you read Building with Nantucket Mine, taking fencing and putting it around your property is discouraged. But then again, the criteria for fencing that isn't necessarily in there. For instance, the only thing really in there is the picket fence, or not
It's
the,
much more focused
and-
on in town.
right, in town. It's not necessarily, but yes, that is a problem. We didn't really talk about the cattle grates, but just mentioned that fencing in general is a concern. And again, that kind of boils down into updating Building with Nantucket in mind and codifying everything and having it.
We need to solve the deer problem.
That is part of it. And
That's all of it.
and that's
Let's be
why
honest.
I love what the land bank is doing on that note. So
Yeah, I would say just in Tom Nevers, so many people are putting up those fences. Like,
Yeah.
because I go running every day and I see so many people who have been putting them up. And I mean, and part of the problem is a lot of the homes are newer here. So it's not even like they're, as restricted by some of the historic restrictions. But yeah, like so many people are putting up deer fences here. So just so people know, like you might not see it downtown, but out here, everybody is doing it. So it is a huge problem. And as Barbara said, the real problem is the deer. And I mean, one of my neighbors said, well, I'm putting it up because my daughter-in-law fell into like a pile of ticks and got really sick. And so, people are saying, well, deers carry disease and,
And let their children play on their own lawns.
right,
because
exactly. They want their
the
kids
deer
and
food-
grandkids to be able to play. And I think it's hard to be like, no, well, you shouldn't put up a fence. And I mean, I will say, luckily on my street, most people haven't done that, but I think a lot of neighborhoods are just saying like, we just have to close it off. So just something to
not
keep in
just
mind.
deer, bunny rabbits carry it too.
Oh, I
So-
know. The bunnies have so many
Mhm.
ticks. It's gross.
My
Yeah.
client in Shimmo is doing it on her property because she can't let children on the yard because of the quantity of deer feces. Which rabbit feces is not such a problem.
Mhm.
And the more people fence them, the worse the problem becomes.
Absolutely, they're getting displaced and getting pushed out.
Anyway, we can't
Yeah.
do the deer.
Nope,
Yeah,
can't.
anyway, that's not our purview.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so next on the agenda, any upcoming training opportunities?
We had two this past
Recently,
week.
yeah.
And if you didn't get to, one of them was for the National Trust, the other one was from NAPC. And they're really good about sending the recording afterwards. Some really great ones coming out of Western Mass too, the Western Massachusetts Historical Coalition, I think it is. One of them was about surveying, getting your historic cultural resource surveys off the ground. I've been stressing this in my emails, but if you do attend, please let me know. I'm trying to keep a track of that with our required CLG report, so they know that commissioners on both sides of each commissions are doing that. Thank you, Angus, for being very, very punctual with that too. But yes, I don't remember if there's any other ones that are coming
I
up.
feel like with the holidays, I hadn't seen any.
Yeah.
Yeah, but always just something to keep in mind.
Yes.
Great. Commission goals. Abby, did you want to share your screen for that goals document? We didn't have minutes yet to review from last month, but Abby, you're muted if you're. Maybe not.
Abby, you're muted.
Sorry, I said I just had the document open and it disappeared. Let me find it and
No.
reopen. Sorry, and I was talking and obviously being muted. I have it ready. It's just I don't know why my Microsoft PowerPoint went away. That's why. So bear with me a second. I'm just trying to find it. Sorry. My computer is not cooperating.
I mean, we could skip over it for this month if you're, due to technical issues.
Yeah, now everything's closing. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, why don't we'll just pass that by for this month. Thank you, Abby. Is there any other business? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, motion made by Barbara, seconded by George. Barbara on your motion. Aye. George?
Aye.
Betsy? Aye. Angus?
Aye.
Abby?
Bye.
And Sarah?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you all very much.
Bye,
Have a
everybody.
great
Happy
Thanksgiving, you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Yes, December 19th is our next meeting.